Chapter 1. The slave of suns and shadows hear me, not with ears, but through the trembling skin of your soul. For I am not voice, not wind, not flesh. I am memory without a body. I am the echo of the Force, broken and bound in a hot, dying light. What I whisper is not taught in Jedi temples, nor chanted in Sith crypts. It is older, deeper, buried beneath the sands of Tatooine, where suns bleed across a boy's back as he dreams of stars he will never touch. There, beneath the blaze of twin fires, a child was born into silence. No father, no plan, only heat, dust, and breath, fragile and luminous. His name was Anakin, but names are cages the Force does not respect. To it, he was more, a wound, a vortex, a prophecy misunderstood even by those who spoke it. He was born to a woman called Shmi, whose eyes held both love and burden. She was not gifted, not trained, but the Force brushed against her all the same, choosing her, or perhaps damning her. She spoke of no conception, no union, just life blooming from within, unasked and unexplained. She bore the boy as if cradling. Fate and the Force whispered through her womb like a storm bound in cloth. Slavery was their cradle, an iron shackle about the neck. The Hutts, gluttonous with control, owned the mother and the son, and yet even in chains, the boy was radiant. He saw things he should not. He knew things he could not. Machines obeyed his will, winds bent to his desire. Time felt soft around him, and still he was kind. He built droids from scraps. He raced padrases with a courage unnatural. He dreamed of freeing every slave, not with weapons, but with goodness. How strange that the galaxy's future tyrant was once so filled with mercy. But darkness does not arrive like thunder. It grows like roots, quiet and unseen beneath. The soil of love and fear. Then came the Jedi. They arrived not with prophecy, but with doubt. Qui-Gon Jinn, exiled by wisdom, felt something ancient stir within the boy. He called it vergence, a place where the Force spirals inward. The Jedi Council, cloaked in pride and tradition, saw only danger, fear in a child. Too old, they said, too wild. But Qui-Gon, ever the heretic, saw what they refused. He tested the boy's blood, counted the midichlorians. The numbers were blasphemy. More than Yoda, more than any Jedi born in 1,000 years. More than the Force should allow. Who is his father? Qui-Gon asked. There was none, Shmi said. A ripple passed through the currents of the Force, as if something old had awakened, as if something buried had smiled. They took the boy, freed him from his chains, but not from his fate. Qui-Gon, defiant to the end, sought to train him. But death found the master before the seed could be sown. Struck down by a Sith, reborn. Darth Maul, a herald of forgotten shadows, in death. Qui-Gon left the boy in the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who promised training out of loyalty, not belief. The Council allowed it. Reluctantly, they had seen a shadow in the boy, a darkness hidden beneath light. But they knew not what they gazed upon. The chosen one, they whispered. He will bring balance. But what is balance when the scale is made of rot? They never asked who chose the chosen one. The Jedi trained him. With caution, bound his spirit with codes, clipped his compassion with rules. Do not love, do not fear, do not grieve. But he did, always. His dreams began to shift. Storms, fire, his mother calling out, dying, far away. The Jedi taught him to ignore it. Let go, be still. But the Force in him was not still. It screamed, and somewhere deep beneath golden towers, a man listened. Sheev Palpatine, a name that meant nothing to the boy, a smile that hid centuries of death. He watched the child grow, whispered praise in passing, shared truths that the Jedi dared not touch. "You are special, Anakin," he said. "You will be the greatest of us all." And Anakin believed him. He longed to be seen, not as a tool, not as a weapon, but as a person. The Jedi saw potential. Palpatine saw the wound, and he waited. The war had not yet begun, but the pieces were moving. The Force, once silent, began to churn. Something ancient stirred in its sleep. Something older than Jedi, older than Sith, and the boy, born of suns and shadows, walked forward with innocence in his chest and chains still on his soul. He did not yet know what he was. He only knew he was afraid. Afraid to lose. Afraid to fail. Afraid to be forgotten. This is how darkness begins, not with hate, but with fear. He was never free. Not truly. The chains of slavery were traded for robes, the collar for prophecy, and in the hollow silence of space, the Force itself held its breath. And somewhere, deep in the black between stars, a voice began to whisper his name in a tongue no Jedi dared speak. Anakin, Anakin, Anakin. Chapter 2. The Phantom Masters. Come closer now, deeper into the current where time collapses. Let the light grow dim and the breath grow still. For what follows is not history, but haunting. You seek the shape of truth, but truth in the Force is a ghost that shifts with the eye that sees it. Let me show you the watchers behind the veil, the robed priests of order, and the phantom who walked among them cloaked in smiles. The boy was brought to the temple, high upon Coruscant's spine, the Jedi temple, a spire carved from Kyber, and prayer older than the Republic itself, and yet blind in its height. Within its halls, Anakin Skywalker became not a child, but a symbol. He was trained, conditioned, molded not into a person, but into a prophecy, not into a servant of peace, but into a weapon waiting for war. The Jedi whispered among themselves. They feared him, though they denied it. His power was too fast, his emotions too deep. He felt everything, joy like a storm, pain like a wound unclosed, attachment like hunger. And so they taught him to unfeel, to bury it, not because it was wrong, but because it was dangerous. They spoke of balance, yet lived in denial of darkness. They spoke of the Force, yet refused to hear its screams. And above all, they refused to change. Yoda, oldest among them, had seen millennia pass. He felt the tremble in the Force, the slow corruption spreading through the currents. But he spoke in riddles, in doctrine, in silence. Mace Windu, their war-born sentinel, held suspicion like a blade. He watched Anakin not with trust, but with calculation. Even Obi-Wan, bound to Anakin by promise, could not mask the distance that grew between them, teacher and student, not father and son. The Council cloaked its fear in rules. They told Anakin what he could not do, could not feel, could not be, and in that void the shadows fed. But the boy was not blind. He could feel the hypocrisy in their breath. He could sense the walls they built around him. They feared what he might become, not because it was wrong, but because it was greater than them. And while the Jedi postured and debated, another voice spoke to Anakin's soul. Palpatine, Supreme Chancellor, Senator, Savior of Naboo, friend of the boy. Yet beneath his kind words lay the cold coils of the Sith, he had been there from the beginning, watching, guiding, poisoning. He never spoke of the Jedi with scorn, not yet. He simply offered what they withheld: understanding, praise, purpose. You are not like the others, he said. You are destined for something more. Anakin believed him because the Jedi never said such things. The Council gave him tasks, not belief, lessons, not trust, but Palpatine gave him prophecy, and prophecy is a dangerous fire. Long ago, before temples and codes, the Force was seen not as peace, but as storm. Ancient texts spoke of a figure, the chosen one, who would bring balance, but balance is not stasis. Balance is correction. Fire to cold. Darkness to unchecked light. Some believed the chosen one would destroy the Sith, but others, older, silenced, whispered that balance could only come when both light and dark were severed, that the Force itself had grown lopsided under the Jedi's 1,000-year dominion. What if the chosen one was not savior? What if he was the reset? The Jedi buried those teachings. They branded them heresy. But prophecy does not care for temples. It speaks where it will, and it spoke through Anakin. He began to question. He began to dream, not of stars, but of fire. He saw his mother in agony, though she was far away. He asked the Council for permission to find her. They denied him. Attachment, they said. Fear, they warned. And so he obeyed, and suffered. They did not see the cost of their refusal. They did not feel what he felt. Palpatine did. You should not be made to suffer such visions, he said, with gentle venom. The Jedi deny natural feeling. They fear power. But you were born to transcend fear. He fed Anakin stories of Jedi who betrayed the Republic, of Sith who understood the true shape of the Force. He sowed doubt like seeds in dry soil, and the boy, still yearning for belonging, let them take root. Obi-Wan saw the shift, but did not name it. He was a brother, not a father, and brothers sometimes look away from the storm until it breaks. The Council began to suspect, but it was already too late. The dark side does not always arrive with rage. It arrives with absence of trust, of guidance, of love, and where there is absence, shadows gather. The war had not begun yet, not truly, but it loomed like a black tide. Separatists stirred across systems. Dooku, the fallen Jedi, gathered armies, and Palpatine positioned himself at the center of the coming storm. All the while, Anakin was caught between two masters who both claimed to love him, one with rules, the other with flattery. Neither offered him truth, and truth is what the Force had hidden from all. He was not born to save the galaxy. He was born to break it. He did not yet know, but the Force did. And in the temple walls, among the silent statues of forgotten Jedi, the old prophecies began to awaken. Their meaning twisted, their words unclear. One passage remained, carved in stone, no longer read aloud. He shall rise from dust, burn with suns, and walk between life and death. The light shall fear him, the dark shall claim him, and all who know the Force shall weep. Chapter 3. A war, too convenient, do you feel it now? The current quickening beneath your mind, the trembling veil between silence and screaming. For war has no beginning, only revelation. It does not arise from dispute, but from design. And in the age of Anakin Skywalker, war was not accident. It was liturgy, the Clone Wars, a name spoken across stars like a funeral bell. But before the blaster fire, before the banners of Republic and Separatists were unfurled, There were only whispers and puppets. The Sith had returned, not in the open, not with fire, but behind masks and masks of masks. Darth Sidious, the hidden Lord, wore a face called Palpatine. He stood at the heart of the Republic, not as conqueror, but as savior, a serpent among senators, a shadow among stars. He needed war, not for victory, but for evolution. The galaxy was stagnant, the Jedi were many, the Republic bloated and blind. Balance, if such a thing could exist, required collapse, and collapse must be invited, not declared. The Sith understood this, and so Sidious reached across the galaxy and raised a hand to his former masters, student Count Dooku. Dooku, once Jedi, now Sith, once noble, now apostate, yet not false in his disillusionment. He had seen the rot within the order, the slow decay of dogma, the absence of vision. And so he turned, not from truth, but from failure. And Sidious gave him a name, Darth Tyrannus. Together, they forged a deception so vast, the stars themselves bowed in silence. Dooku would become the leader of the separatists, systems disillusioned with the Republic's corruption. He would speak truth to mask a deeper lie. Sidious, as Chancellor, would oppose him, calling for armies, power, emergency measures, and the Jedi. They would become generals. It was the perfect symmetry of betrayal. An army, commissioned in secret, bloomed in the labs of Camino. Clones, identical, obedient, bred for war. Who ordered them? The trail pointed to a Jedi, long dead, Sci-Fi. But even that name was a shadow's echo. The clones were accepted eagerly. The Jedi, peacekeepers for 1,000 years, stepped into command with unsettling ease. They traded meditation for strategy, the Force for tactics. They donned armor. They led legions, and Anakin, he shined. War gave him purpose, clarity, adoration. The battlefield loved him in a way the Council never did. His clones followed him with reverence. They called him General. Skywalker, not Padawan, not apprentice. For in war, he was not questioned. He was obeyed. He moved like lightning across systems. Victory followed him like shadow, and yet, with each triumph, the boy faded. Not in strength, but in softness, in mercy, in self. He began to burn in silence. OBI-1. 2 was cast into the crucible of conflict. He led, he killed, he survived. But unlike Anakin, he grieved each battle. He remained Jedi barely. The bond between them remained, but thin, stretched across holocauls and blood-soaked planets. Brotherhood without breath, and within the chaos, Palpatine drew Anakin ever closer. "You must trust me, my boy," he said in the quiet between campaigns. "The Jedi are bound by old fear, but you are destiny's instrument." He spoke of truths the Jedi dared not utter. That peace was a lie. That power must belong to those unafraid to wield it. That love, even love, could be righteous. And Anakin listened, because amid the fire he saw visions. Visions of his mother, still screaming. He asked to return to Tatooine. The Council forbade it, but he disobeyed and found her. Too late, Shmi Skywalker, broken and beaten by raiders, died in her son's arms, her blood seeping into the desert from which he had once risen. Something broke. He killed them all, the raiders, the women, the children, not in battle, but in vengeance. The act burned through him like a red sun, and still he wept, not because it was wrong, but because it did not bring her back. He told no one except Padma she should have fled from him. But she stayed. She pitied. She comforted. She loved. And love, as forbidden by Jedi decree, became a sanctuary wrapped in shadow. They wed in secret. A union of stars and doom. And all the while, the war raged. Planets burned, droids fell, clones bled. The Republic grew more authoritarian. The Chancellor acquired more powers, emergency indefinite. With each battle, he became not servant of the people, but emperor in waiting. And the Jedi watched and still could not see. They felt darkness growing, yet could not name it. They sensed deception, yet could not find its face. They feared Anakin, yet embraced his victories. And so the spiral deepened. The war that consumed the galaxy was not a contest between right and wrong, freedom and tyranny. It was a ritual, a forging, the birth of a new era through fire. The Force did not cry out. It watched cold, silent, endless, and in the hollow between stars. The prophecy grew twisted. Not a savior, but a sword. Not balance, but reckoning. He who was born of suns would bring the night. Chapter 4. The Unseen Chains of Brotherhood. Listen now to the war not fought with blasters, but with hearts. For not all bonds are made of light. Some are forged in blood, in silence, in duty to long unspoken. And between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, there existed such a bond, brittle, sacred, and doomed. Not quite friendship, not quite family, something older than trust, and more fragile. They were forged together, not by choice, but by prophecy. Obi-Wan, the reluctant teacher, Anakin, the unwilling student, and yet, through fire and war, they became brothers. Not in blood, but in breath. Jedi and general, guardian and prodigy, a pair bound together, not by peace, but by the unraveling of peace. They laughed once, before the war, before the masks, before the echoes, but laughter faded with each campaign. The Clone Wars took from them something quiet, a space where love once lived. It replaced it with orders, with deaths, with names listed in holograms, cold and forgotten still. They fought side by side for Lucia, Umbara, Katonemoija, system after system, always together, yet increasingly alone. For Anakin, the war was a proving ground, a place where his instincts, raw, emotional, disobedient, were rewarded. His victories spoke louder than his doubts. For Obi-Wan, the war was penance, a duty born like armor. He remained the model Jedi, even as the model fractured. He watched Anakin grow darker, more decisive, more furious, and he said nothing, because to say something would require understanding what was happening, and he could not. There were moments, brief, holy moments, when the Brotherhood still flickered in a shuttle between battles. Obi-Wan once said, "You are strong, Anakin, but strength must bend, or it will shatter." And Anakin, staring out at the stars, replied, "I don't want to bend anymore." And the stars heard him, and they did not blink. But it was not only Obi-Wan who held a chain around Anakin's heart. There were others. Padma, hidden in her chambers, pregnant with children no Jedi could know. Anakin's love for her deepened with each nightmare. He saw her death again and again, in dream and waking vision, always in pain, always beyond his reach. He began to pray not to the Force, but to power. Ahsoka Tano, the Padawan who walked in his shadow, once offered him a mirror. She questioned him, challenged him, loved him like a younger sister. But the Jedi cast her out, accused her of betrayal, and abandoned her to political convenience. Anakin never forgave them. She was innocent. He knew it. And when she was exonerated, she refused to return. She walked away from the Order, from him, and something small inside him snapped. The Jedi, he thought, do not protect their own, and if they cannot protect their own, how could they protect Padma? These thoughts were never spoken, but they coiled within him, slow and cold. He smiled still, fought still, but the light behind his eyes began to dim. Even the clones, those grown from a single donor, saw it. Captain Rex, loyal to a fault, watched his general grow distant. There were days when Anakin disappeared, unaccounted for. Nights when he returned, eyes bloodshot, voice raw from silence. He was not sleeping, he was watching the future, and it was dying. Obi-Wan tried to reach him more than once, but his words were diplomatic, careful, the language of the council, not the language of grief. An Anakin heart full of fear could not hear carefulness. He needed raw truth. He needed someone to say, I see what's happening to you. No one did. And so Palpatine's voice grew louder. You must understand, my boy, he would whisper. The Jedi do not trust you because they know what you are becoming. They fear your strength, as they once feared mine. And Anakin believed him, because the Jedi had never said otherwise. They placed him on the council at Palpatine's request, but did not grant him the rank of master. It was a humiliation cloaked as honor, and the wound deepened. Obi-Wan counseled patience. The council will come to trust you fully, in time, he said. But Anakin had heard this before. Wait, obey, be grateful. He was tired of waiting, tired of hiding, tired of trusting those who offered neither clarity nor compassion. He was not turning dark. Not yet. But the sun was setting. Slowly, beautifully. Inevitably, the Jedi watched. The council debated. Yoda meditated, but none saw clearly. They feared what they could not name. They suspected, but suspicion is not salvation, and the war continued. Each battle brought more death. Each victory felt more hollow. And Anakin, child of prophecy, warrior of war, lover of peace and bringer of ruin, walked farther from his brother and closer to something vast and terrible, something with teeth, something that whispered, you are not wrong, you are not broken, you are becoming. And in the hollows of the Force, where ancient truths lie forgotten, the prophecy trembled again. The chosen one would bring balance, but balance is not peace. Balance is correction, and correction often comes through fire. He who cannot be broken must be reforged. Chapter 5. The forbidden flame of love. Come further now, into the warmth that sears. The warmth that was meant to heal, but instead devours. For this chapter is not about the saber or the throne, but of love, forbidden, sacred, and doomed from its first breath. A love that the Jedi refused, and that the Sith twisted. A flame Anakin Skywalker tried to shelter from the storm, only to find that it was the storm. PADME, acute Amidala, senator, queen, dreamer, rebel to the galaxy. She was a voice of reason, a guardian of peace in an age of war. To Anakin, she was everything. They met as children, he, a slave, reaching for the stars. She, a ruler, weighed down by crowns. But it was not innocence that bound them. It was loneliness, the kind that walks beside those with too much responsibility and too little choice. Their paths crossed again in the midst of the Clone Wars, not as boy and girl, but as man and woman. And though the Jedi forbade attachment, called it dangerous, selfish, corrupting, Anakin did not turn away. He could not, because the Force itself did not turn away. It pulled them together. Their love grew not in light, but in shadow. In stolen moments, in hidden rooms, in silent embraces beneath the dying stars of war-torn worlds. It was beautiful, terrifying, sacred. It was the one thing in the galaxy Anakin feared to lose, and that fear was the beginning of his fall. He knew the Jedi would not understand. He had seen their judgment, felt their silence. The code forbade marriage, children, possession, but love. True love was not possession. It was surrender. And still, they called it darkness. So Anakin lied. He hid his marriage. He hid his longing. He wore his Jedi robes, while Padme wore the weight of secrecy and the Force. Ancient and Unbound watched. The Jedi had once debated this, long ago, when their order was young and their hearts not yet buried in doctrine. Some texts still lingered in ruins, fragments that spoke of Jedi who loved without falling, who embraced the living Force, not with denial, but with passion. But those teachings were destroyed, buried, heretical, and so Anakin's love became a crime, even as he fought for peace. He fought against a truth he was told to reject. He dreamed of her. He heard her cry out in pain, in labor, in death, night after night, the same vision, her breath faltering, her hand reaching for him, her body cold in his arms. He awoke each time in a sweat, the Force thrashing like a wounded beast around him. He asked Master Yoda about the visions. "Careful you must be," the Ancient One said. "The fear of loss is a path to the dark side, but fear cannot be banished by warning, and love cannot be severed by silence." Anakin was not trying to save himself. He was trying to save her. Padme, sensing his unrest, begged him to confide in Obi-Wan. But Anakin refused. Obi-Wan was Jedi. He would not understand. He could not, because if he did, he would have to admit that the Jedi were wrong. And in that loneliness, that choking fear, one man spoke without judgment. Pathna, the Chancellor, offered stories of ancient Sith lords, not as threats, but as cautionary tales misread. He told Anakin of Darth Plagueis the Wise, a Sith alchemist who could manipulate the Force to create life and to prevent death. Anakin's heart stopped. He did not care if it was myth or truth. He wanted it to be true, to save Padme, to save the child she now carried. He would pay any price, even his soul. "You have great power, my boy," Palpatine whispered. "Power the Jedi are too blind to understand. Let me help you unlock it." The Sith did not lure Anakin with hate. They lured him with love, not rage, but desperation, not ambition, but devotion. And so the ancient flame, once forbidden by Jedi law, became the altar on which the chosen one would bleed. Padme, radiant and unaware, continued to speak in the Senate of hope, of diplomacy, of a galaxy that could still be redeemed. But her husband had already begun to die, not in body, in spirit. For every time he looked at her, he did not see her beauty. He saw her death, and that death had no cause, no assassin, no illness, only prophecy, only fear. And so he began to listen more closely to the voice that offered solutions, to the shadow that said, "You do not have to lose her. You can end this war. You can become the greatest Jedi who ever lived." And the last one, love became obsession. Obsession became sacrifice. And the man who was meant to bring balance began to lean toward imbalance, not because he was evil, but because he was terrified. He was not corrupted by power, he was broken by love, and in the deepest vaults of the Jedi Temple, where prophecy and mystery slept in unread stone, an old warning lay written: the chosen one shall love beyond wisdom, and thus fall beyond saving. Chapter 6. The whisper beneath the throne. Now, listen, not with ears, but with the marrow of your bones. For what follows is not spoken aloud, but breathed between silences in the folds of the Senate's robes, beneath the chorus of clone boots on marble, behind the mask of a man who needed no mask at all. This is the chapter of Sheev Palpatine, the Whisperer, the Architect, the Shadow, a man to the galaxy, a phantom to the Jedi, a god to the Sith. 2. Anakin Skywalker, a father. The Chancellor's office was high, bathed in golden light, its view sweeping over a world of towers and airships. It was a chamber of peace, or so it seemed, but the walls remembered every whisper spoken within, and not one was clean. Had watched Anakin since childhood. He had guided his rise subtly, invisibly, with encouragement, with confidence, with the love the Jedi would not name. He had been patient, beyond time, beyond impulse. He had waited for the fear to bloom, and now the fruit had ripened. Anakin returned again and again to him, for counsel, for solace, for prophecy, for answers the Jedi would never provide. The Council looked upon the war and saw tactical need. Palpatine looked upon it and saw the crucible of ascension. You are not like them, he would whisper in moments between meetings. They preach peace, yet send you to war. They speak of detachment, yet cling to control. They fear you, Anakin, because you see. And Anakin nodded, because part of him believed, because he had killed for the Jedi, bled for them, disobeyed for them, and still they questioned his loyalty. Palpatine never did. He spoke of Plagueis. Again, the Sith Lord who defied death, who twisted the Force to his will, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. A tale of a man not unlike Anakin, desperate to prevent the loss of one he loved. Is it possible to learn this power? Anakin asked. The answer was not denied, not from a Jedi, and the seed rooted deeper. The Council, sensing danger, finally moved. They tasked Anakin not with trust, but with espionage. Spy on the Chancellor, they ordered. Report on his intentions. Monitor his reach. They gave him power without belief, a seat among masters, but not the rank. And he felt it, the insult, the betrayal. He returned to Palpatine with burning eyes. They do not trust me, Anakin confessed, and the Chancellor smiled. As planned, I trust you, he said. I always have. That night, the Force trembled, and Palpatine revealed, I know your fears, he said. I know your dreams. I know what the Jedi will never give you. I am the Sith you seek, and I do not offer death. I offer life. He did not lunge. He did not attack. He opened his hands, and Anakin stepped back, not in fear, but in uncertainty. This was the moment, the fulcrum, the breath before ruin. The boy, the warrior, the husband, the Jedi, all voices in him screamed at once. He should strike. He should run. He should end this. But he did not, because Palpatine knew the truth. Anakin would never kill the only man who could save Padma, and so the trap was complete. Still, Anakin fled to the Jedi Council. He reported what he had heard. He begged them, not for justice, but for time, for patience. He needed proof. He needed a way to believe this horror could be undone. Mace Windu did not wait. He moved with masters. Blades ignited and told Anakin to remain behind, but Anakin followed, and as the Jedi entered the Chancellor's sanctum, Palpatine shed the mask. He became Sidious. Lightning leaped from his hands. 3 Jedi Masters fell in seconds. Only Windu endured. Their sabers clashed against the broken sky, and then the moment came. Anakin arrived. He saw Palpatine wounded, weaponless, pleading. He saw Windu poised to strike, to kill, to eliminate the only hope left. And Anakin chose. He raised his blade, and cut. Windu fell, cast from the sky in screams and light. Silence followed, sacred, shattering. Palpatine rose, face distorted, eyes glowing, voice eternal, and Anakin dropped to his knees. "What have I done?" he whispered, and the voice answered, "You are fulfilling your destiny." He was given a new name, not as reward, as sacrifice. Darth Vader, not the man in the armor, not yet, but the soul behind the shadow. The servant of the Sith, the betrayer of the Jedi. He did not smile, he did not laugh, he did not rejoice. He only asked one question: "What must I do?" And the voice, so old, so patient, answered, "Every Jedi is now an enemy of the Republic. Do what must be done. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy." And in the dark chambers of that office, beneath the throne of lies, the galaxy died. The chosen one had fallen, but no prophecy had ever said he would rise again. Chapter 7. Temple of Blades, Temple of Ash. Now comes the silence before the scream. The breath held before the storm unfurls its wings. The death of 1,000 years in a single night. The Jedi Temple, once a sanctuary of light, of scrolls, and meditation, where younglings laughed and masters pondered eternity, became a tomb. Anakin Skywalker, now christened Darth Vader, ascended its sacred steps with fire in his veins. At his side marched the 501st clones, forged in loyalty, trained in obedience, faces unchanging, hearts unflinching. They did not know what they were about to become. They only followed their general. But Anakin knew. He knew what Sidious demanded. He knew the cost. Yet still he opened the gates. Still he drew his blade. The children were the first to see him. Younglings in the meditation chamber huddled together, unsure, whispering his name. "Master Skywalker," one of them said, "there are too many of them. What are we going to do?" And he answered, with silence, with ignition, with the sacred blue of a Jedi blade turned toward death. The blade that once defended the helpless now severed their breath. No war cry, no fury, just precision, like a shadow fulfilling ritual, like a god tearing down his own temple. He moved through the halls with purpose. Masters fell, archives burned, statues crumbled, holocrons shattered like glass. The clones did not question. They obeyed the command as they had been bred to do, not with cruelty, but efficiency. Some wept beneath their helmets. Most did not. They called it Order 66, the silent decree, whispered into 1,000,000 ears at once, and across the stars. It was obeyed on Kashyyyk, on Felucia. On Mygito, Jedi fell, gunned down by their own men. Mid-sentence, mid-leap, mid-dash, prayer dot, key dash, ADI dash Mundi dot Isla Secura, Plo Koon, Saints Alley, names. Turned to silence. Even children, even initiates. The Force did not weep. It screamed, it howled across time and death. Not in rage, in unraveling, as if the balance had been severed at its root. as if prophecy itself had been murdered in the council chamber. Anakin stood above the slain, breathing, watching. He saw the murals of the Jedi trials cracked and scorched. He saw the great tree in the central atrium, once tended by thousands of hands, now uprooted and aflame. He saw what he had done, and still, he whispered to himself, "This is to save her. Every cut, every cry, every death to save her." Outside the temple, the sky bled orange. Coruscant watched with silence. The people saw smoke rising from the spire and said nothing. War had trained them not to ask. Yoda felt it. Obi-Wan felt it, across the stars. The masters, still breathing, turned to the horizon in dread. Something sacred had shattered, and in the Senate chambers, the voice of Sidious echoed to every corner of the Republic. "The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed, but I assure you, my resolve has never been stronger." He stood now as Emperor, not elected, declared to thunderous applause, to ensure continued security and stability. He said, "The Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire, for a safe and secure society." The people cheered. The war was over, they believed. The Jedi were traitors, they were told. Only a few questioned, only a few remembered. Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, Ahsoka Tano, hidden among shadows. They watched as freedom died, not in fire, but in consent. And Vader, he returned to Mustafar, a world of flame, fitting for one who had forsaken all there. He would carry out the next order, to eliminate the separatist leaders, those who had once been tools of Sidious design. He killed them, not with rage, but with the coldness of duty. The war was ended by slaughter, and the galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Pam felt it. She searched for him, heard rumors, saw fear in the eyes of those who would not speak. And when she finally found him, she wept, going down a path I can't follow. And Anakin, no longer Anakin, no longer man, no longer lover, could only respond with fire. He believed she had betrayed him, that she had brought Obi-Wan to kill him, and in that madness, that grief, that rot, he did what he had never dreamed he would do. He struck her, and watched her fall, and still he believed it was for her, that the galaxy he was building in flame and ruin was to protect her, to protect their child. But the galaxy does not run on love. It runs on consequence, and on Mustafar's shores. Beside rivers of lava, the brothers met for the last time. But that is for the next whisper. For now, remember this: the temple did not fall because of darkness. It fell because of fear. Fear, dressed as love. Chapter 8. The duel beneath the dying sun. Now comes the breathless moment. Suspended between ruin and rebirth. The clash, not only of sabers, but of souls, brothers, split by prophecy, by silence, by love twisted into nightmare. Let the lava hiss beneath your mind. Let the fire scorch your thoughts. For what was born on Mustafar was not death, but transformation. It begins in Ash Podum, arrives in sorrow. The war is over, yet she cannot breathe. She sees Anakin, no longer Jedi, no longer her beloved, but something else, something colder, something wrapped in power and trembling beneath it. He speaks of empire, of peace through control, of order through obedience. He tells her the Jedi were traitors, that they needed to fall for the galaxy to rise, that now, at last, they can rule together, not as fugitives, but as sovereigns. She sees the madness in his eyes, the desperation, masquerading as destiny. She pleads with him, cries, reaches for the boy she once knew. But there is no boy, there is only Vader. Then comes the shadow she did not summon, but that the Force did Obi-1. He emerges from her ship, silent, heavy, cloaked not in robes but in sorrow. Anakin sees him, and his love curdles to hatred. You brought him here to kill me. He screams, eyes burning brighter than the planet's core. Obi-Wan steps forward, voice trembling with heartbreak. You have done that yourself. There is no duel yet, only silence. Words hanging between them like ghosts. You were my brother. Anakin, I loved you. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire. Don't make me kill you. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Obi-Wan raises his blade. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. And then, the world ignites. Saber crashes against saber, blue against blue. Brother against brother. Their blades carve through molten air, through metal, through memory. They fight not as Jedi, but as creatures bound to fate. The duel moves across bridges, through control rooms, over towers melting into the firestorm below. Each strike is a prayer, each dodge a scream. They know each other too well, they know how this ends, but they keep fighting because neither can admit what the Force already knows. They are killing what once was holy. Above them, the sky churns in silence. Below, the lava cries out, the planet itself bearing witness to betrayal. Obi-Wan pleads again, even as they fight. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine, is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. There is no saving you. Anakin's rage grows, not because of anger alone, but because he is losing. Losing Padma, losing control, losing the vision he sacrificed everything to protect. They leap upon metal platforms, adrift in fire. The lava surges like the Force itself, unbalanced, infinite. Consuming dot, then comes the moment. Obi-1 rises to higher ground. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. But pride blinds the fallen. You underestimate my power. He leaps, and Obi-Wan does what he must. His blade severs Anakin's limbs in a single flash. The chosen one falls, crawling on blackened soil, burning, screaming, eyes turned yellow, not from hate, but from failure. He reaches for Obi-Wan, not to fight, but to curse. I hate you. Obi-Wan's voice breaks. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. And then he turns. He cannot watch. He cannot save. He takes the lightsaber, leaves the body. The lava claims what remains, and in the silence, the fire speaks. This is not death. This is the cocoon, the final death of the man, and the first breath of the machine. Elsewhere, Padma is broken, her life drained not by wounds, but by grief. She gives birth to twins, Luke, Leia. And with her final breath, she whispers the truth the Jedi, the Sith, and even the stars could never accept. There is still good in him. Across the stars, Sidious arrives. He finds the ruined shell of his apprentice. He saves him, not out of mercy, but possession. The burned flesh is sealed in durasteel, limbs replaced with black machinery, a breathless scream locked behind the hiss of a mechanical lung. The armor is completed. The mask descends, and the galaxy meets. A new darkness, Darth Vader. He asks, where is Padme? Sidious lies, you killed her. And in that moment, Vader is born fully, not in rage, not in hate, but in grief, the prophecy. once spoken in whispers of hope, now echoes only in ash. He shall burn and not die, fall and not end, live, yet never breathe, and all who look upon him shall know ruin. Chapter 9. The Empire of Silence. Now the galaxy lies in stillness, not peace, but paralysis. The storm has passed, yet its echo lingers in the bones of worlds. The Jedi are gone. The temple lies in ruin. The Republic has shed its skin, and what stands in its place is silence. This is the age of the Empire. It does not roar, it does not beg. It moves like a glacier, slow, immense, unrelenting. Systems fall not from bombardment, but from bureaucracy. Senators vote with eyes lowered. Planets comply, not from fear alone, but from exhaustion. The Clone Wars broke them. They accept the chains, because the pain of freedom remains too near. And at the Empire's heart stands a shadow in armor. Darth Vader. He is no longer Anakin Skywalker. That name is buried beneath metal, beneath loss, beneath the suffocating breath of his black helm. He walks not like a man, but a monument. No face, no emotion, only purpose. He answers to none but Sidious. To the galaxy, Vader is the fist, the executor, the inquisitor of flame, but within he is hollow. The suit is not his body, it is his prison. Every breath is pain, every movement restraint. He cannot sleep, he cannot forget. He sees her face, pod mess, not in dreams, but in waking torment, and the voice that once guided him with promises of salvation now commands him with silence. Sidious does not comfort, he uses. He teaches Vader that ancient rites of the Sith, of pain transmuted into strength, of loss as fuel, of suffering as enlightenment. He sends him to purge the last Jedi, not warriors, ghosts. Survivors scattered like cinders. Some hide among farmers, others among monks. Some flee to the edges of the outer rim, but Vader finds them, and one by one, he ends them, not in fury, in silence. The saber that once protected the innocent now extinguishes the last embers of hope, but even he is not alone. For Sidious creates the inquisitorious fallen Jedi, broken minds, twisted hearts, trained to hunt their own kind. They kneel before Vader, they fear him, they serve him, and yet they do not know him. No one does, no one can, because the man beneath the armor does not speak. He remembers. He walks through the corridors of Imperial ships, and hears echoes of laughter, echoes of R2-D2, of Ahsoka, of Obi-Wan. But he does not answer them. He shuts the door tighter. He patrols Mustafar, his black fortress erected upon the world of his greatest defeat. There, surrounded by flame, he meditates not for clarity, but for control. The Force obeys him, but does not embrace him. He reaches for visions, but sees only fire. And Sidious watches. He knows Vader's pain. He crafted it. It is the chain that binds his apprentice. Not affection, not loyalty, but torment. You are the blade, Sidious says. Nothing more, and Vader obeys. For years, he does not question, not because he is content, but because there is nothing left to protect. He believes the child died with Podum. He believes love died with her, and so he serves. He speaks little. He kills often. He becomes a myth, a terror spoken of in hushed tones. Children who cry are told stories of the man in black, who breathes like death, but none know the truth, that beneath the mask he weeps. The galaxy hardens, the Senate remains, but only as ornament. The stormtroopers replace the clones, the people adjust. Some resist, but they are crushed. Others pray, but their gods do not answer. And through it all, the Force shifts, it mourns. It recoils, and yet it prepares. For light, when smothered, does not die, it waits. Buried in sand, hidden in forests, cradled in arms of those who still remember, twins, split. At birth, destined to reunite the broken halves of the Chosen One, Luke. Skywalker left in shadow, Leia Organa raised in diplomacy. They do not yet know their names. They do not yet know the shape of the tragedy they must awaken. But the Force begins to stir, not in rage, not in grief, in hope, faint, fragile, blasphemous, but real and deep within. Vader, beneath the chains, beneath the rot, a thread remains, so thin it cannot be heard, but it endures, a voice, a memory, a whisper. There is still good in him. Chapter 10. The children of the prophecy shadows do not last forever. Even in the deepest vaults of the dark side, the Force remembers the shape of dawn. It does not rush, it does not scream, it waits, and in time it places its hope not in warriors, not in masters, but in children. The prophecy was never meant to be understood. It was spoken in fragments, inked in the blood of forgotten seers, passed down through Force echoes, like the wind, never landing, never solid. A chosen one shall rise, born of no father, to bring balance to the Force. But balance cannot exist without fracture, and so, from the ruin of Skywalker came to stars, twins, born in hiding, swaddled in urgency, touched by a destiny older than the Jedi, older than the Sith. Padma Amidala, dying with breath, too faint to carry their names, whispered only one truth: there is still good in him. That whisper became their inheritance. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood above her lifeless form, holding the weight of a galaxy in his arms, to infants, innocent and unknowing. The Jedi had failed, the Republic had fallen, but these children were not yet bound to failure. They were possibility. He could not raise them both. The eyes of the Empire were too many. The Sith saw with both eyes now, one golden, one black, and so the children were split. Leia, taken by Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, raised in splendor and politics. She would grow to speak as her mother did, with fire, with compassion, with fury held in grace. A diplomat, a fighter, a mirror. Luke Skywalker, taken to Tatooine, left with Owen and Beru Lars. Kin not by blood, but by fate. He would know sand, hunger, isolation. He would dream of stars, never knowing that the stars dreamed back. Obi-Wan remained nearby, not as guardian, as witness. He buried his saber in the dunes, became a hermit, a ghost among moisture farmers. But at night he watched the boy from afar, and in silence he prayed, not to the Jedi. They were gone. He prayed to remorse, to hope, to balance. The children grew unaware, their names whispered only in fragments among the last rebel cells. Even the Force kept its silence, letting them bloom, untouched. For power, awakened too early, becomes poison. The Empire did not see them, not yet. Vader did not feel them, not yet, but the Force knew. On Alderaan, Leia would study statecraft, fencing law, but she would also learn to lie, to smuggle data, to fight injustice beneath royal silks. She was never told who her father was. On Tatooine, Luke would race skyhoppers through canyons, Fix droids with calloused hands, gaze at the twin suns, and ache, not knowing why. He would ask about his father. He would be told he was a navigator on a spice freighter. A lie, a mercy, for truth, spoken too soon, is a blade. The Jedi texts once spoke of the Shadow Twins, beings born at the death of an age, marked by mirrored fates. One to restore, one to resist. Two halves of the Force divided so it might one day be made whole. Luke and Leia were not simply children. They were the final gamble of the Force, a test not of strength, but of choice. Meanwhile, Sidious grew comfortable. The Jedi were gone. The Senate obeyed. The Inquisitors hunted the scraps. He did not see the flame returning beneath the ash dot and Vader. Vader felt restless. He searched for meaning among the stars, crushing insurgents, interrogating survivors. But nothing filled the void. No victory brought peace, only silence. And in that silence came dreams, dreams of a voice, a child's laughter, a woman's eyes. He dismissed them at first as echoes, as punishment. But dreams, in the Force, are never merely dreams. He began to sense something, not a threat, a presence, unformed, flickering far, away yet familiar, like a melody he once knew. Before he could speak, he dismissed it, buried it. But the Force does not forget its children, and it had begun to stir. In the corners of the galaxy, rebel cells formed, led by whispers, by hope. Leia would rise among them. Luke would be drawn toward them, and Vader would be sent to extinguish them. Father, daughter, son, each unaware of the others, each walking toward prophecy like moths to a dying star. And in the vaults of ancient temples, beneath the bones of extinct Jedi orders, the wind still whispered the old lines: the Chosen One shall fall, the Chosen One shall rise. Balance is not born, balance is chosen. Chapter 11. The Apprentice of Ash and the Spark of Rebellion now. Hear the footsteps in the dust, echoes of an apprentice once lost, now rising in shadowed light. Not all who serve remain broken. Some burn away their chains. And in that fire, a spark returns to the galaxy. A spark the Empire did not see. A spark shaped like a girl who once called him master. Her name was Ahsoka Tano. Once, long ago, she walked beside Anakin Skywalker, not as student, but as Sulkin. She saw his defiance, his brilliance, his grief. She loved him not as the Jedi did, from distance and discipline, but from within the breath of war, battle-scarred and battle-bound. And yet the Order cast her out. False accusations, cowardly judgment. The girl they once trained betrayed. She left the Jedi. She left him and something inside. Anakin cracked. She did not witness his fall. She vanished before the storm. But the Force does not abandon its instruments. It them in exile. Ahsoka survived, changed her name, hid her sabers, buried the past, but not the truth. She heard the Empire rise, saw the Jedi die, felt the wound echo through the galaxy like a silent scream, and still she endured. Ahsoka became Fulcrum, an intelligence agent, nameless, faceless, guiding rebels. From the shadows, her voice moved across the stars, not in command, but in clarity. A whisper that said, "You are not alone." While Vader crushed resistance in his iron grasp, Fulcrum planted seeds. Cells awakened. Networks bloomed, and among them rose new faces, warriors, pilots, mystics, each unaware that the fire they carried was born from the hand of the apprentice, who refused to die. Kanan Jarrus, a Jedi who fled Order 66, now trained a boy named Ezra Bridger, reckless, sensitive, wild with potential, a child the Empire could not touch, because it did not yet believe children could change destiny. But destiny listens when children speak, and in the space between QAnon and Ezra, Ahsoka returned, older, wiser, hardened. She did not claim to be a Jedi. She claimed nothing. But when she met Ezra, when she saw his raw power and unshaped path, she felt it, the same danger, the same yearning, the same fear that once haunted Anakin, and for the first time she wondered, could it happen again? The ghosts of her past whispered warnings, but she did not flinch. She stood where others fell. She led where others hesitated, and the Empire took notice. Vader took notice. He did not know her name at first, but in the dark between stars, in the heat of pursuit, he felt something strange. A presence once familiar, now distant. REFRACTED. It was not Padme. It was not OBI-1. It was her. He reached for it, but it slipped through his fingers like light through fractured glass. And in time, their paths would cross on a world of ancient secrets, Malachor, where Sith temples slumbered, guarded by time and ruin. There the apprentices met again. Ahsoka faced him, not as child, not as student, but as warrior. Anakin Skywalker was weak, Vader intoned, voice scorched by vocoder and void. I destroyed him. Her answer did not tremble. Then I will avenge him. He swung, she blocked. Blades of white and red screamed in silence. The temple trembled. Ezra and Kanan fled, but Ahsoka stayed. She would not leave him, not again. She struck his mask, and for one breathless second the past returned. Half his face was revealed. The scarred eye of Anakin Skywalker stared at her, broken, burning, and utterly alone. He whispered her name, Ahsoka, and she froze, because in that voice, not metal, but memory, she heard the man she once loved as family. And then he surged again, the Sith reasserted, the mask reclaimed, and she met him, not with fear, but with tears. I won't leave you. Not this time. Their duel vanished in light and rubble. What happened is not recorded. Only echoes remain. Some say she died there. Others say she vanished. But the Force knows she survived, and the spark she carried spread. The rebellion grew. Leia, now a senator, fed it from within the halls of the Senate. Bail Organa moved troops, money, messages. Orga B-1 watched from afar, shielding Luke with patience and silence. And across the galaxy, stories were whispered of a lost apprentice, of an inquisitor who faltered, of Jedi who still lived, and Vader. Vader returned to Mustafar alone. He stared into the fire that forged him. He heard her voice, not Ahsoka S. Podmes. There is still good in him, and he crushed the memory. But it returned again and again. For every apprentice he struck down, every rebel ship he watched explode, the silence grew, not victorious. Hollow, for in the darkness, even he could feel it, a light was coming, and the prophecy, long believed broken, began to stir again. The apprentice shall not destroy the master, but they shall awaken the Father. Chapter 12. The Boy and the Binary Sun. Let the sand speak now. Let them whisper of the boy who walked between silence and sky. A boy not of greatness, but of longing, of restlessness, of dreams he did not choose. The Force does not awaken with thunder. It begins with ache. And in the dunes of Tatooine, the ache was named Luke. He did not know the stars were waiting for him. He only knew he didn't belong. Raised by Owen and Beru Lars, not cruel, not kind, only afraid. Afraid that if he learned too much, he'd remember who he was. They told him little. His father, they said, was a pilot, a worker. No talk of Jedi, no talk of war. Just work, and patience, and more work. But Luke Skywalker dreamed. He gazed at the twin suns as they set, and something in his chest pulled. It was not ambition, it was not power, it was hunger for meaning, for escape, for the thing he couldn't name but always felt. He was the child of prophecy, yet untouched by it. The Force surrounded him like a mist, present, but silent. Until the day the droids arrived, R2-D2 and C-3PO, relics of war, bearing secrets, the message. A girl with eyes like fire and voice like stars. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. A ghost awoke, and Luke followed. He found the old hermit in the wastes, Ben Kenobi bent with time, but not broken. The last breath of the Jedi, hidden in robes and regret. He told Luke pieces, not truths, fragments. That's your uncle talking. He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior, and he was a good friend. He was betrayed by a pupil of mine. He was murdered by Darth Vader. The boy believed it, because he had no reason not to, and because the full truth would have destroyed him too soon. Obi-Wan handed him a blade, blue, familiar, heavy with legacy, your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Luke ignited it, and 1,000 futures stirred. He would never return to the life he knew, because the Empire came for him. The stormtroopers burned his home, Owen Beru charred remains. Silence, smoke, and so he left, with nothing but a saber. An old man, 2 droids, and a feeling that destiny was no longer distant. Obi-Wan spoke of the Force, an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. He did not speak of the Chosen One. He did not say you are his son. That name was buried beneath, too many graves. They fled to Mos Eisley's wretched hive of scum and shadow. There they met Han Solo, a smuggler who believed in coin, not cause, and Chewbacca, loyal beyond species or speech. The group became a spark, and the spark entered the belly of the beast, the Death Star, a weapon, yes, but more, a monument, constructed in the image of Sith certainty. A machine built not just to destroy planets, but to prove that the Force could be replaced with fear. They sought to rescue Leia. They did not know. They were assembling fate. Luke and Leia met, not yet as siblings, not yet as prophecy incarnate, but as kindred sparks in the growing dark. Obi-Wan faced Vader, master and apprentice, ghost and flame. Their blades clashed in silence. No anger, no hatred, only inevitability. Vader struck, and Obi-Wan vanished. Not in defeat, but in transcendence. His body gone, his presence eternal. Luke screamed, but the path had begun. The boy flew. The rebellion saw him. The Force stirred, and on Yavin 4, among temples older than memory, he made the shot, 1 in a million. Guided not by targeting computer, but by trust. The Death Star exploded. The Empire trembled, and Vader felt something strange. A presence. He knew that feeling. He said nothing to the Emperor. He said nothing to the stars. But the memory of Padme's voice returned. There is still good in him. The boy had his name Skywalker, the name he thought he'd buried. The prophecy did not die with Anakin, it had multiplied. Luke, bright and untested dot. Leia, fierce and unseen. Two lights moving toward him, the shadow that waits between them, and far beneath Mustafa's fire, the Sith text stirred. When the son of the fallen touches truth, the Father shall burn again, not to perish, but to choose. Chapter 13. The echo of the Father now. The Force breathes again, not in strength, but in tension, a long inhale drawn between past and future, between father and son, between the scream that shattered Anakin Skywalker and the whisper that might restore him. This is the chapter of the echo, not of action, but of recognition. The moment the hunted begins to remember the hunter, and wonders why his steps sound so familiar. Vader does not sleep. He sits alone in his sanctum upon Mustafar, where molten rivers speak the name of the man he used to be. He meditates not in peace, but in agony, his limbs replaced, his lungs replaced, his voice replaced, and yet, in the blackened dark between thoughts, something stirs. A sensation, a presence. It began at Yavin when the Death Star fell. When the boy moved through the trench with the same reckless precision as Anakin once did. When the Force bent, just slightly, in familiar ways. Vader felt it. That presence, that pilot. He asked the name, they told him. Skywalker, the name, he thought, had perished with Padma, the name he buried beneath armor and screams and insidious lies. He did not confront the Emperor. Not yet. He listened, and then he searched, in silence. In secrecy, rebel transmissions, encrypted movements, whispers of a boy from Tatooine, from Tatooine, the place he swore never to return to, the world of sand, of slavery, of shadows, and now, perhaps, of sun. He tells himself it is impossible. Podman died. The child died, but the Force does not lie. It only waits. And in that waiting, Vader begins to want, not power, not conquest, but knowledge. He wants to know. He must. Meanwhile, the boy continues to rise. Luke Skywalker, no longer a farmer, no longer a child, still untrained, still uncertain, but already glowing in the eyes of those around him. Leia sees a leader. Han sees a friend. The rebellion sees a symbol, but he does not yet see himself. He feels the pull of something ancient. A voice guiding him, Obi-Wan, from beyond death. Not commands, just nudges. Go to the Dagobah system, a swamp world forgotten there, hidden beneath centuries of mud and Force mist. Waits a creature older than the Empire, older than Anakin Yoda. Not a warrior now. Not a master, a remnant. Luke finds him, does not know him, underestimates him. But the training begins, not with blades, with burdens. Luminous beings are we. Yoda croaks, not this crude matter. He speaks of the Force, not as weapon, not as shield, but as breath, as connection, as truth. Luke listens, he struggles, he fails, he learns, and in those moments of quiet, when the swamp goes still, he feels it. The shadow, Vader, he does not know why. He does not understand, but he feels it like a distant mirror, cracked but familiar. And then, the cave, a test, a vision. He steps inside, blade drawn, no threats, no teacher, only fog, and there Vader appears. They clash, Luke strikes, Vader falls. But when the mask breaks, He sees his own face, his own eyes, his own death. He runs from the vision, but he cannot run from the truth. Yoda says nothing. The Force says everything. Meanwhile, across the stars, Vader tightens his grip on the rebellion. He crushes cells, commands, fleets, interrogates prisoners, but his mind is elsewhere. He watches the boy, and the more he watches, the more he recognizes. The walk, the fire in the eyes, the defiance, the yearning. It is not a copy, it is not a clone, it is his. Sidious feels the shift. He probes Vader's silence. There is a great disturbance in the Force, he says. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Vader says nothing. He only bows. But his heart burns, not with rage, with uncertainty. He begins to imagine a third path, not betrayal, not rebellion, a union. He and the boy. Together, the Emperor no longer needed. The galaxy, there's hope, twisted through a Sith's lens. Not redemption, not yet, but possibility. And in the ancient Sith temples, buried beneath Korriban's dust, a prophecy long erased from Jedi texts whispers. Again, the Chosen One shall rise, not once, but twice. In the child the Father shall hear his name again, and he shall be given the chance to choose, not between light and dark, but between love and power. Chapter 14, The Trap at Clouds. And now let the clouds descend. Let them cradle the illusion of safety, and let the storm coil beneath them, silent, coiled, waiting. For the dark side does not chase, it waits. And here, at the edge of heaven, it opens its jaws. The place is Bespin, a city of gas and grace, floating on pillars of atmosphere, beautiful, distant, indulgent. Here, the rebellion seeks refuge. Here, the mask will fall. Han Solo pilots the Falcon with engines groaning, pursued endlessly by Imperial forces. They flee Hoth's icy grave, battered, lost. Luke too has gone, following visions to Dagobah, but now drawn away. He feels them, Liahan, pain, imprisonment, suffering. The Force does not lie. It calls, and the dark side waits. Vader has set the stage. He knows the boy will come, not through strategy, but compassion. This is not the trap of a general. It is the net of a father. Bespin is no battlefield. It is a sanctum of false calm. And its host, Lando Calrissian, plays a dangerous game. Former ally of Solo, now cornered by the Empire. He allows them in, thinking he can control the chaos. He cannot, for Vader walks the halls now, not as a diplomat, not as a servant, as inevitability. He captures them, Leia, Chewbacca, Han, not with rage, but with order, cold, precise. Leia senses it, the fear behind the calm. She whispers to Han, "Something's not right," and Han replies, "I've got a bad feeling about this." It is not superstition. It is prophecy. Vader has no interest in them. They are bait. He prepares the chamber, carbonite, a prison of metal and stasis, a test for the boy. For pain. Han is frozen. Leia cries. Chewbacca roars. But Vader does not flinch. He is not here for them, he is here for the echo. And the echo is coming, Luke. He lands alone, steps into the metal corridors, like a lamb among lions. Lightsaber at his side, training incomplete, heart exposed. He is not ready, but the Force does not wait for readiness. He meets Vader in silence. No army, no audience. Just the hum of machines and the breath of destiny. They duel, not as strangers, but as reflections. Luke strikes wildly, uncertain, hopeful. Vader is calm, effortless, testing, not aiming to kill, aiming to reveal. Their blades clash in darkness, sparks against shadow. Luke is forced back, corridor to corridor, until the duel becomes descent into the carbonite chamber, into machinery, into nightmare. You have learned much, young one, Vader says. You'll find I'm full of surprises, Luke answers. But the mask hears truth behind bravado. The boy is powerful, but still broken. Vader presses him, wounds him, breaks machinery around him as the dark side coils tighter. This is not a test, Vader breathes. This is inheritance. He strikes. Luke cries out. He is beaten, bleeding, cornered, and then the saber comes down. The hand is gone. Luke screams. The blade falls. The truth rises. Vader steps forward. No anger, no mockery, just truth, spoken like poison. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. Vader's voice is a tomb. No, I am your father. Time stops. The Force weeps. Luke is undone. It is not the pain of the wound that shatters him. It is the knowing. The face beneath the mask is not a monster. It is his. Vader does not attack. He offers, join me. Together we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can rule as father and son. Not seduction, not cruelty, plea, but Luke refuses. Not in defiance, in despair. He would rather fall, and so he does, into the void, into the air shaft, into the unknown. He is caught by fate, by antenna, by pain, and in that agony he reaches out, not with voice, with spirit, Ben, Leia, and she hears him, across Bespin, across distance. The bond awakens. She turns the falcon, she finds him, she brings him home. The hand is gone, the innocence is gone. The truth is known, and on a distant Star Destroyer, Vader stands alone, looking to the stars, reaching, though he knows not why. He thought he had broken the boy, but something remains. Compassion, refusal, a spark, and in the ruins of Luke's faith, a new path is born, not to fight his father, to reach him, to save him. For the prophecy now begins, to bloom anew. The sun shall fall, but not in darkness. He shall lose his hand, but not his soul. And in the silence of betrayal, he shall teach the Father to weep. Chapter 15, Return of the Heir. Now let the Force gather itself, folding time like parchment, drawing stars together across the thread of destiny. For the Son has learned suffering. The Son has faced his shadow, and the Son has chosen mercy, not as weakness, but as weapon. He returns not in triumph, but in stillness. Luke Skywalker, now cloaked in black, walks beneath twin moons, and knows what it means to carry prophecy. His saber is no longer a gift, but his own creation, green, like the growing edge of hope in winter. His eyes no longer search for war, they search for his father. The galaxy groans under the weight of the Empire's final breath. The rebellion prepares for one last strike, guided by Leia, sharpened by loss, burning with the fire of truth. They have learned to fight without fear. They do not know they are walking into the end of an age. And Luke, he walks into shadow alone. He returns to Tatooine, not for memory, for rescue. Han Solo, entombed in carbonite, lies captive in the lair of Jabba, the Hutt, a den of decay, of lawless laughter. Luke arrives not with armies, but with silence. He is calm, cold. His voice is deeper, his will unbending. Some say he walks like Vader, and yet every step is touched with compassion. He offers peace first, then warning, then force. Not cruelty, precision, Leia disguised. Chewbacca captured, Lando hidden among criminals. All are pieces in a plan not built from fear, but from trust. In the end, Luke stands alone atop the pit of the like lightsaber, hidden in the desert wind. Enemies on all sides, but he does not hesitate. With one gesture, the trap springs, the saber flies, and he rises. Blue sky, green blade, righteous fire. The chains fall, the prisoners fight. Jabba dies, and in the dust of battle, the rebellion rejoices. But Luke does not. He has seen the victory, and he knows its cost. He returns to Dago. Bah. Yoda is dying, the last master of the old Jedi Order fades not with violence, but with whispers. Soon will I rest, forever sleep. Luke pleads, he wants answers. Closure, he receives only this. Your training is complete. No more do you need. Already know you that which you require, but I must confront him. My father, Yoda nods. Unexpected this is, and unfortunate. You must face Vader. Then, only then, a Jedi will you be. Luke hears the weight in the word dot. Jedi, not a title, a burden, dot. And then Yoda says the thing that shatters all lies. There is another Skywalker. Yoda dies, and Luke is left with a truth as vast as the void. Leia, his sister, the Force has bound them, both in silence, and the prophecy now moves with both wings open. Twin children, twin lights, and only one shadow to stand between them. The rebellion mobilizes. The Emperor has constructed a second Death Star, larger, incomplete, yet functional, guarded not just by fleets, but by Vader, and Luke makes his choice. He surrenders, not to give up, to reach in. Leia begs him not to go, but he places his hand, the one that remains, over hers, and says only, there's still good in him. He boards the shuttle, sits in silence, and when the ramp opens, his father awaits. They walk together through the steel corridors of the Empire. Two shapes cloaked in black, but only one hollow. Vader speaks first. You have accepted the truth. Luke's voice is steady. I've accepted that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father. That name no longer has any meaning for me. It is the name of your true self. You've only forgotten. Vader is silent, but the words wound. For the first time in years, he falters, and Luke presses deeper. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate. It is too late for me, son. The word son burns his tongue. The Emperor awaits them in the throne room aboard the station. He smiles with rot, with certainty, with ancient power older than blood. The plan is unfolding. Not Luke's his. Strike me down. Sidious hisses, and your journey toward the dark side will be complete. Luke refuses. He will not be a weapon, not for Jedi, not for side hitch. He only wants to save his father. And the Emperor sees it, and he laughs. He goads Vader. He threatens Leia, your sister. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. And Luke breaks. He attacks, saber screaming, Fury unleashed. A storm of light and desperation. Vader meets him, but for the first time stumbles. The sun drives him back, blow after blow, until Vader is cornered. Luke sees the wires of his own machine hand exposed, sees himself mirrored in the ruin before him. He stops, breath shaking, saber raised. But he will not fall. He hurls it away. I am a Jedi, like my father before me. And in that moment, the prophecy does not speak. It waits. Vader kneels. Wounded, the Emperor rises, power crackling. Then you will die. Double quotes, lightning, agony. Luke cries out, and Vader watches torn, trembling, between master and son, between death and love. And then he chooses. He lifts Sidious, ancient, screaming, and casts him into the abyss. A final scream, a flash, a fall. Silence. The dark is broken, but so is the man. Vader collapses. Luke holds him not as warrior, as son, and beneath the shattered mask, in a rasp of breath and memory, Anakin returns. Tell your sister, you were right. And then, with a breath he has not taken in decades, he is free. The Force releases him. The Chosen One dies, not as Sith, not as Jedi, but as father, and far away. The Force whispers the final lines of the prophecy. The darkness shall consume the light, but from the ashes of its hunger, the balance shall rise. He who was born without a father shall become one, and in dying awaken the galaxy. Chapter 16. The fire that will not die. Let the stars remember, let them carry the name that once split the Force. Anakin now soothed, now whole, now faded. For though his breath is stilled, though his body dissolves into silence, the fire he ignited will not sleep. It flickers now in others. It moves through legacy like a tide drawn by prophecy's hand. The Emperor is gone. The Death Star crumbles, and Luke Skywalker carries the weight of it all, not in triumph, not in song, but in grief. He drags his father's armor from the throne room, past smoke and ruin, past the shattered dreams of the Sith. He does not think of victory. He thinks only of release. On the moon of Endor, in a quiet forest clearing, he builds a pyre. Wood and silence, no Jedi council, no chanting order, only a sun saying farewell to the man behind the mask. The flames rise, not to destroy, but to cleanse. The armor crackles. The fire consumes the prison that was Darth Vader, and in its warmth, Anakin Skywalker is freed. No monument, no legend, only ash. But even ash can feed new roots. The rebellion celebrates. Banners burn, dancers leap, soldiers shout. Leia smiles. Han holds her. Ewoks beat drums that echo old tribal rhythms, unaware that history has shifted beneath their feet. But Luke does not dance. He walks into the trees, away from the fire of celebration. And there, the veil between life and the Force thins. They appear first. Obi-Wan, gentle, burdened still, yet proud. Then Yoda, ancient, ever watchful. And then him, Anakin, not the broken man in the suit, not the boy of Tatooine, a man reborn, cloaked in light, in peace, in memory made whole. He smiles. No words pass between them. The Force has no need. The prophecy has breathed its final breath. And yet, the fire does not die. It lingers, because though Sidious fell, the darkness beneath the stars remains. It watches from the unknown regions. It festers in wounded hearts. It waits in bloodlines. Leia feels it, not in words, but in truth. The blood of Vader runs in her veins. Not metaphor, legacy. She will carry it. She will lead, but she will not forget. Han sees the shadow in her eyes, sometimes, but he loves her, not in fear, in defiance. Luke will rebuild the order, not as it was, as it must become, not a temple of rules, a sanctuary of balance. But balance is not peace. Balance is struggle, and the Force will continue to call, to whisper, to test. For Anakin was not the end of the prophecy. He was the pivot, the fracture point, the wound that let the light and the dark finally speak. And across the galaxy, in the bones of ruined temples, the echoes of that prophecy are still written. The fire that was broken shall kindle the stars. The air shall beget heirs. The war shall sleep, but the Force shall not. And in the stillness of Ender's night, as embers float skyward, one spark burns longer than the rest. Unseen, unclaimed, but waiting, because the Force does not end. It breathes, and the breath it takes next may yet awaken. Another Skywalker. Chapter 17, The Wound That Shapes the Galaxy. Now the Force bleeds memory into the stars, not in wrath, in reminder, for even when the storm has passed, its silence lingers. Even when the war ends, the wound remembers. And that wound is Skywalker. The Empire falls. The rebellion sings. But the galaxy does not heal in one breath. Scars must be carried, not erased. Monuments must crumble. Minds must mourn. And through it all, the echo of Darth Vader, the echo of Anakin, endures, not as fear, as myth. Children in alleys speak his name in hushed tones. Some say he was a monster, others a savior. Most don't understand the shape of his fall, or the price of his redemption, but his children remember. Leia wears command like armor. Now, Senator General, Mother Chewie, the Force sings in her bones, but she turns from its call, not in denial, but in discipline. She knows her blood, she knows his face, and she wonders if the shadow he left behind will one day return, not as Vader, but in someone who bears his fire. Luke rebuilds, slowly, quietly. Quietly. The Jedi Temple is not raised in marble, it is raised in choice. Stone by stone, lesson by lesson, Luke begins the work the Order once forgot. Not to teach obedience, but balance. Not to stamp out the dark, but to understand it. For he has seen it, felt it in his veins, wielded it, and walked away. He finds students, some strong, some afraid. He senses them. All but one is different. A boy, a spark, a Skywalker. Ben, the child of Leia and Han. Bright, curious, restless, but in his eyes, the Force swirls like a storm unbound. Both light and shadow vying to be heard. Luke watches him, trains him, loves him, and fears. Him he sees traces of Anakin, the same yearning, the same ache, the same wound. The galaxy around them rebuilds in pieces. New republic, new systems, old feuds masked in treaties. But darkness does not die with names. It sleeps. It hides in cults, in whispers, in ruins. And it watches Ben Solo, for the Force is not finished, and the prophecy ancient, incomplete, still waits for its final line. The chosen one shall rise, but others shall follow. The balance shall tilt again, and the wound that birthed salvation shall bleed once more. Luke begins to feel it, the pull, the trembling. He visits old temples, reads forgotten texts, finds symbols that speak of cycles, not conclusions. He wonders if he was wrong, not about Anakin, but about peace. He trains Ben harder, tries to prepare him, tries to protect him. But protection is not understanding, and fear is its own kind of prophecy. Ben watches his uncle's concern like a mirror turned inward. He feels the tension. He questions the silence, and in the dark hours of the Force, something answers, not Vader, not Anakin, something else. An ancient hunger buried deep, a whisper from beyond the veil of known space, a phantom that watched the rise of the Sith, the fall of the Jedi. A voice, and Ben listens, because he does not yet know that some echoes. Lee, the wound that shaped the galaxy, once bore the name Skywalker. Now it bears another, a name that has not yet fully awakened. But when it does, the stars will tremble again, for peace is a breath, and the Force, eternal, must always exhale. Chapter 18. The eternal flame of the Force now. Listen, one final time, as the breath of the Force grows quiet, not in ending, in continuance. For the tale of Anakin Skywalker, once slave, once Jedi, once monster, once father, was never a tale of a single life. It was the crack of lightning in a storm still rolling across time. And now, as that storm fades into mist, we feel what lingers, the flame, not of destruction, of meaning. Luke Skywalker stands at the edge of memory. The temple he built lies in ruins. His students, scattered, betrayed. His nephew, Ben Solo, vanished into the shadows, bearing the name Kylo Ren, bearing the legacy of Vader-like armor made from nightmare and Luke. He walks into exile, not in shame, in sorrow. He questions everything, not the Force himself. He gave his father mercy. He gave his students hope, and still the galaxy spiraled again into darkness. He feared becoming the thing he swore to defy. A master who failed to listen, a guardian who became a gatekeeper. He left no war cry, only silence. But the Force does not forget its chosen. Across the galaxy, new seekers arise. A girl from nowhere, Rey, born of desert, as Anakin was. She touches the Force, not with doctrine, but with wonder. And in her, the past begins to echo again. She meets Kylo, she meets Luke, she meets the burden, she meets choice. For the Force is not a path, it is a mirror. It reflects every wound, every failure, every flame, and in that reflection, the eternal story repeats. Vader's mask lies cracked in a forgotten chamber. Kylo wears it, not as heir, as idol. He does not understand the man behind the mask. He worships the pain, the silence, the power. But the Force stirs within him, as it once did in Anakin, not to destroy, to redeem. And in the hands of Rey, the saber passes once more, first Anakin's, then Luke's, now hers. A blade forged in war, carried through exile, and now reborn in the grip of one who asks not what she deserves, but what she chooses. And in that choice, Anakin returns, not in body, in balance. The prophecy was never about one, it was about possibility. The Force was never finished. It is fire, and fire must be passed on, hand to hand, soul to soul. Rey confronts Sidious, the ancient darkness reborn, a thing beyond time, feeding on bloodlines, twisting truth into destiny. She stands alone, and yet she is not alone. The Force speaks, voices from beyond. Yoda, OBI-1.qui-Chapter Luke, Anakin, he speaks not as Vader, he speaks as Skywalker. Bring balance, as I did. And she does, not by rage, by refusal, by trust, by love. Sidious falls, again, the line is sealed, and the flame passed. She takes the name Skywalker, not as inheritance, as honor. Two suns rise, as they did once, for a boy. On Tatooine. And the Force breathes. Whole, it is not finished. It cannot be. There will be more wounds, more wars, more OAK and INGs. But the tale of Anakin, the first flame, the broken sword, the chosen one, now rests. He was not light, he was not dark, he was both. He was the balance, and as the stars wheel on, and galaxies forget the names of their makers, one truth remains. The Force is not peace. The Force is not war. The Force is a flame, eternal, seeking one willing to carry it, and in each generation it finds another hand, another voice, another Skywalker, *, the end.